In this video, we're going to go over the stubby ratchets I bought in 3/8 and 1/4 inch drive to upgrade from my Craftsman 3/8 standard drive ratchet that I started with for many years. So I used this American-made Craftsman quick release ratchet for at least 10 to 15 years before I recently started buying all these new tools. One of the things I did want to purchase once I got these new tools was some stubby ratchets that I've never really had. I had this 1/4 inch ratchet, generic I would use, but it's not quite as stubby. I also had these palm ratchets, super cheap, super crappy, super high back drag, made in China. I purchased these when I figured I needed to spin nuts in tight confined spaces, and those three tools worked well for me for 15 years. Once I got into this new tool purchasing journey this last year, I started with inexpensive tools, and I bought this pair of Tekton quick release ratchets for $45 for the pair, or $47. So we'll say they're approximately $23 each, let's say. And didn't really get a chance to use them too much before I went straight and upgraded to some Kokins. I did use them; they work great. Complaints I have is I don't like the quick release, just like the Craftsman, and also the on-off switch is a little tough to flip with your thumb on the 3/8 drive one. Also, the way the design is with the back plate so close to the edge, I kind of don't like, but once I compare them to the Kokins, they also have that same kind of feature. Very similar design. One good thing is when I started buying the Kokins, they are essentially different sizes, so 1/4 inch breaker bar is not needed, but this is the first Kokin tool I purchased. I do not regret it. It's a little overpriced, $20, but works great. This was a $29 1/4 inch ratchet Kokin. They just seem superior to the generic ratchets I had, and these Tektons, it's definitely a different form factor. And as you can see, the bolts are pretty close to the edge of the backing plate, but they're threaded in from the opposite direction, which I'm not sure if it matters at all, but from a design perspective, it seems better. The Zeal has a different design with just one bolt versus the 2-bolt design with the Tekton and the old school Kokin. Very happy with all these purchases. The Kokin stubbies were approximately $40 to $50 each, so they were a little pricey. I definitely didn't need them, but went ahead and purchased them all anyway. So very happy with the final outcome of having all these little ratchets. Seems like I got a ratchet for every scenario here. Do not have flex heads of this size, so maybe in the future I'll be purchasing those. But for anybody interested in purchasing stubby ratchets, I think Kokin is not a bad choice. They're just as good as the other one. This is a Zeal 72 tooth 3/8 stubby, and I enjoy them much more than the Tektons. And they're different form factor, different size. Also, these Kokin spinning wheels come in handy. They're not quite the same thing as the palm ratchets, but add this with an extension and you got a little nut driver almost. So very, very happy with all these purchases. And the Tektons aren't bad, but I definitely would prefer the Kokins, and I'm glad they're all slightly different sizes so I could justify my continued ratchet purchases and not feel like I got too many of the same form factor. So this is the Zeal versus the standard Kokin. The Zeal is a 72 tooth, I think. I gotta look it up. They might have a different tooth count for the 1/4 inch. I did not look that up ahead of this video, but this 1/4 inch one is like a keychain. Doesn't seem to have the same high quality as the rest of the Kokins, but the form factor is the smallest, and if needed, I will not hesitate to use it for a tight 1/4 inch space. So here I am kind of comparing lengths, showing that this Kokin Zeal is almost like a direct replacement for the Craftsman, except for it doesn't have a quick release. And I'm not sure if I've done a video about all these before, but stubby ratchets do come in very handy when doing DIY work. I wanted to make sure I had a bunch and all my bases is covered. And like I said, maybe in the future I'll get a flex head, but for now, I'm pretty happy with. As far as a full use review goes, I would only have that on the Craftsman. Used it DIY for about 15 years. Works absolutely great, but plenty of torque on it for a 3/8. So I'm very happy with it. Don't like the sharp edges. Don't like how sloppy it is. Doesn't feel very good in my hand, but it sure works great. Never had any issues with it. I hope to do a review videos on some of these, maybe in 5 years or so after some good use. But for now, it's just simply how it feels in my hand, how it looks, the dimensions, review video. It's not based on heavy use or even DIY use. These are all relatively new. As far as dimensions goes, the Craftsman's about 7 inches long. The Tecton stubby is about 5 inches long for the 3/8, and that's the Craftsman 3/8. The Kokin stubby 3/8 is about 4 inches long, and that's about the size of the standard Kokin 1/4 inch ratchet. The 1/4 inch stubby Tecton is about 3 inches long, or 3.5. I'm not exactly sure. And the Kokin 1/4 inch stubby is about just under 3 inches long. So they're all a good variety of stubby lengths I got here, from a standard ratchet down to a tiny little keychain ratchet. And as far as the heads go, they're all relatively about the same size. There's more variation in the 1/4 inch, but for 3/8 inch, the Craftsman of the three of the Tecton and the Kokin is the thickest. The Kokin is the second thickest, and the Tecton is the thinnest. But they're very close in size. There's not much difference. As far as the diameter of the head, the pear head, they're all about the same size. And then the Kokin, the Tecton's a little smaller than the Craftsman, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same size. And the Zeal Kokin is clearly smaller than both of them. So it's pretty thick, but very small. Here, I'm showing a knee post ratchet. That's the 3/8 and a 1/4 inch body. It's not a stubby. It's a long ratchet, but I was really just showing it to show the thumb action on the selector switch for on off. Not a fan of the knee pros switch or the extremely raised release button on the old design. This is the one I got on eBay for cheap. But as far as dimensions goes, they're very similar in dimensions. When you get down to the 1/4 inch, I think the Tecton is about 3 inches long, or just over 3 inches long, and the Tecton has the widest pear head. The old school Kokin is slightly smaller, and the Zeal ratchet is definitely smaller. As far as thickness goes, they're pretty much the same for all three 1/4 inch sockets. So the length is the biggest difference in the dimensions, other than the Zeal for the head is definitely smaller diameter, not necessarily thinner. But relatively speaking, they all have very similar dimensions. So here, Since I don't have a heavy use test, one of the tests I like is just how easy is the thumb switch to switch. And this 3/8 Tecton is very difficult. I don't like it. So negative for that. I found the Kokins just have the best switch. It's just the easiest of any ratchet. I even broke out the Nipros just to kind of show it how much superior the Kokin is to the Nipros. Surprisingly, the Craftsman's, I've always liked this about this ratchet. It's very easy to switch the thumb selector. But yeah, this Tecton is a little challenging, but that could be an advantage. I definitely don't like this style of ratchet where you gotta use two hands. Breaker bar doesn't have a selector switch, but very happy with that little 1/4-inch breaker bar. This Kokin old school 1/4-inch socket is very easy to do, but you have to come at it from a upper angle. On the new Zeal, you can just kind of come from the bottom. They almost machined it out so you could just easily select it with very little effort. But on this one, it's very smooth and easy, but you kind of have to come down on the switch, put more effort into it. Whereas the Zeal, it's just right from the bottom, super easy. It's almost like they kind of machined it down just for that effect. The 1/4-inch keychain socket from Kokin is pretty easy to do. You don't have to come from the bottom. And back to the Zeal, that's definitely the best one. So just looking at the differences between the old school Kokin selector switch, where you got to kind of come from a down angle, and the new Zeal. Another thing, I looked up all the tooth counts of all these ratchets except for the Craftsman. I think that's a 36, but I'm not sure. But the Tectons are 90 tooth count. The Zeals are 72. And the 1/4-inch Kokins are 20 tooth count, the old school ones. And if I had the old school Kokin 3/8 ratchet out, which I don't, that would be a 24 tooth count. So 20 tooth count on the 1/4-inch Kokins, 72 on the Zeal Kokins, 90 on the Tecton, and I'm going to look up the Craftsman, but I vaguely remember it at 36. So here I'm just kind of showing how the Zeal is a little thick in the head. The chrome is nice on all of them. I like the Craftsman, more of a duller chrome. Nipro's got a great chrome. But here I am kind of showing how the selector switch on the Nipros is not easy to do one-handed. It's just feels cheaper. It's more sticky. So as far as the Nipros Kokin battle goes, to me this is a huge advantage to Kokin here. Just how easy the selector switch is. I also love that pebble finish on the Zeal. But it's a little unfair because I'm comparing an old Nipros ratchet to a more newer Kokin ratchet. But it's a relatively new ratchet. It's not ancient, I would imagine. The newer design has a recessed quick release button and hopefully a better selector switch. So this is pretty much what I ended up with for stubby ratchets. Now that I'm kind of looking at them all, I'm definitely missing a flex head or two. So we'll see. I'll probably start looking around for one of those, maybe two. And hopefully this video was helpful for somebody out there looking at stubby ratchets that are reasonably priced and rebuildable. That's definitely something I look for in ratchets now. When I first started purchasing ratchets, I didn't. But moving forward, I only want to purchase rebuildable ratchets.